Hi. I'm a member of On and On and On and On, people who talk too much. So I have a little timer right here, and I'll see if I can actually keep it within the time. I'm Steve Schatz, and if you have questions as we go through, I can easily be stopped. So just shout them out whenever. I will hopefully give you time at the end to ask questions, but if something is interesting, you will not sidetrack me any more than I sidetrack myself, as anyone who's been in my classes knows. Okay, so that was how to build games. This is how do you play with this pedagogy of being an online instructor. I got hired here a couple of years ago, and I taught technology and education, and was hired into the instructional design program here, and bring a lot of the theory and stuff like that. And it's the amusing part of the world that I had a kind of bad taste about online education, and was hired into an online education program, and so, so I came to it with this a little bit of reticence, because I love this kind of a situation. I love having a room full of people. I love being able to see when people are falling asleep or not, when they get it, when they don't. I love that when you are teaching in person, if there's a question, you can change your course on a dime and go in a complete different direction. And there's this distance in distance ed. And so my thought was that, well, it's good, but it's kind of like Plato's cave. You're just seeing the shadows of the puppets on the wall, but it's necessary because everybody can't get here. And so we'll hold our nose and do that. And so I started teaching online stuff and started playing with this thing. And I was also going down to University of Hartford and teaching down there. And I was starting to show them how to do online education. I teach master's students here, which is a different ball of wax than the undergraduates that I was teaching at University of Hartford. So we had our first online session with the undergraduates, and so I said, so how'd you like it? And they said, oh, we loved it. It was great, blah, 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 blah. And I said, and I usually when I'm lecturing, I'm sitting back in a chair and talking to people, and I said, yeah, it was okay, but the thing that I don't like about distance is this feeling that that nobody's really, and I'm looking down at my hands and I'm saying, that nobody's really paying attention, and I don't have that connection with people. And I look up, and in this entire class of undergraduates, no one is looking at me. Everyone is on their screen or on their phone or on, and I said, like now. And it was an epiphany. I am teachable. I can learn. I realized that just because we're in a room does not mean that that's right, that we're connecting, that we have that interaction. And so I started diving in a lot more and enjoying it a lot more. And over the last 2 years and summers, I mean, I'm in CAPS, and CAPS is, we teach a lot, okay? So I've got 4 courses and 4 courses a semester, 2 courses in the summer. So I get to try new things a bunch of times. And so I've done blended, I've online asynchronous. I've done flipped, which I love. I mean, I think that we should talk about it when we're in class. We should not be me just instructing it. High flex. People have a knowledge of that? They throw out these new terms all the time. Okay, so high flex. High flex is you can take synchronous or you can take it. Your students have the choice that they can choose any time. They can be synchronous, asynchronous, in class, or in class. So they have complete freedom and they can change every week. And the first time around, it sounds like, when I first heard of this, I just rolled my eyes and said, yeah, on a cold day in lower regions, but it's not, I'm not going to do that. But then this is what happened. So we had low enrollment in a class, and I said, well, people can sign up. And then I had people from, I had a class in evaluation, and I had someone who was in Qatar, and my class is at 7 o'clock at night. Well, 7 o'clock at night here, it's 3 a.m. in Qatar. So she could come occasionally, but not all the time. So sometimes she was asynchronous, so she participated on the discussion boards. Sometimes she woke up most nights and participated, which really makes it hard to complain about the fact that you got up at 6 a.m. when somebody with 3 kids is up at 3 a.m. listening to you talk in the class discussion. But high flex is completely flexible. And what I'm doing now is what I call mid flex, which I kind of like a little better, which is this. It's basically a blended class, but the people can be distant, so if they want to participate, they have to participate synchronously online. So I open up, the university is using Fuse now. I've been using GoToMeeting, and so 15 minutes before class, I send out an invite. The people who are out there can participate via their phone, their computer. They can actually call in. They can see it if they're on either an Android, if they're on a smartphone, or they can be in class. Yeah.
So when you say blended, you're talking about your people that are taking an online course are with your face-to-face class, and you're doing this
Synchronously, yeah, that takes a while to say. Blended in our definition is that we have some weeks are online and some weeks are in person. And the in-person classes, you actually do have to physically be there. So mid-flex to me is more like a blended class, but they can participate online. They can participate synchronously online. That's right. So they have to, in other words, the thing I don't like about a discussion only is that we don't have a chance to have these conversations. And my classes really end up being a lot of somebody comes up with a question, and so we veer in that direction, and then we come back and like that. And you can't do that so much in a just online forum. So I think it's richer. I think you have the closer you are physically, the richer the interaction. I still believe that. However, it comes very close when they are in the same room. Let's Let's see if I can show you. Let's see, my UMass Boston. And we go here, and I'll go to 650 in fall. I'll go to 618 in fall. Okay, so you don't need to hear this, but you can see.
And you can see.
At this point, not everyone signed on because it's just the beginning. So I have one camera pointed at me. God forbid I not be on the camera. One is actually pointed at the kids in the room. And then the other people who start signing on, who show their video, are, so Malia is in San Francisco. So this is using GoToMeeting, but in Fusebox, you have the same ability to do that, to have this bar of webcams. And it takes a little while to get used to it, but not that long, and the students are very forgiving. You just kind of go, yeah, let's see how we can do. You should have seen the first semester I tried this. It was amusing. It was just this ongoing, feedback. You get an echo feedback thing. That's often the biggest challenge. It's this part that's actually creates the biggest problem, because you have a video, you have a microphone here and a microphone here. But I have done this before and had like 6 people here, and then I've had another 4 people, 4 to 6 people everywhere around the world. Sometimes it doesn't work so nicely. So there is one scheduled for 7 o'clock at night, or 7:30 at night, whatever it is, that the ridiculous time slot. And the first week, one person showed up. It's high flex. One person showed up. They were able to, because they were on campus and they came. And I had 8 people from all over the world online. That's difficult because you aren't quite sure where to look. Do you look at the camera? Do you look back here? Or do you look at the one person in the room? Thankfully, after that, she decided that she would participate online too. And so we had synchronous sessions, which did add to the strangeness, because there I would be at 9:30 at night talking to myself in the basement of Healy while 9 people were participating online. So it's kind of strange, but yeah, I've done stranger.
So you're actually in one of the classrooms?
Yeah. So since then, that's what I've done. But what's important to remember is that these are all delivery tools. This is just a way of delivering. This is a delivery, those are deliveries. But online gives us a chance to address our pedagogy, how we actually teach and how we set up learning environments. And that's what I think is really important. What I do now is I use multiple modes of delivery. I use a model from John Seeley Brown and Scott Cook, which I'll tell you about. Foreshadowing. And something that I call cognitive immersion. It's the flow of the semester. And I better talk faster. And it's a partnership in learning. And that's something that has you have to start with it. Even though I ended with this, I start with this. You have to get over the feeling that you are the poobah in front of the room, because it ain't going to happen with this stuff. This is a great leveler. You are more expert at this stuff, but you are not the grand poobah. Okay, so Cook and Brown. Huge difference. The paper is called The Generative Dance. If you search for it, you will find it. John Seeley Brown ran Xerox PARC. Scott Cook is a philosopher. They got together, wrote this great paper. Looking at knowledge acquisition, and I'm going to do it real quickly. Guy named Polanyi, mathematician, said, well, we don't just know, there's explicit and there's tacit knowledge. Explicit knowledge is, I know how to tie my shoe. I take the loop and push it through. It's very hard to make it because it's in the way. Step by step by step. That's what we teach for the most part. Tacit is, add a little bit of salt. Okay? How do I know? You need it until it's done. Cooking speaks to this a lot. Then two guys in Japan, Nanaka and Taguchi, said, well, there's not only that, but there's also individual and group. So we have individual knowledge, we have group knowledge. So individual, explicit knowledge, step-by-step stuff. Most common stuff. Tacit, individual, pinch of salt. Now we look over at group. In instructional design, we have the ADDIE model. Analyze, design, develop, implement, evaluate. Any field has this is the things that we do. Okay? And we teach that a lot. But this part, this thing, which is group implicit or tacit, I use them synonymously. That's the hardest thing to get, and that's really what we're trying to do. That's why it takes 4 to 10 years to get a PhD, is because you're learning how to walk like an Egyptian. You're learning how to think like a designer, think like a historian. That's the toughest thing. We tend to teach here, and our students need to get here. This is much harder. This is easier to teach, and it's easier to test. This is tougher, much tougher. So what do we do? So that's Polanyi, Nanaka, and Taguchi. Then Cook and Brown said, okay, so this is all knowledge you have. It's possessed. I've got this knowledge. I have it. And then they introduced a new kind of knowledge. It said, well, there's knowledge that you've got, but then there's knowledge in action. They call it knowing or practice. How do you know when your kid is crying if it's I'm whiny or I've really been hurt? How do you know when you're teaching that it's time to push through or it's time to repeat? What it is it comes from doing it a lot, and you really only can do it while you're doing it. How can you drive when you're in a skid? You can be told plenty of times, but it's not until you're actually in a skid that you tend to be able to either steer out or steer into something. So they said there's a different kind, and what they said is there's this dynamic tension that's going on between these two things. And what's really cool is that when you're doing this activity, when you're doing your practice, you use possessed knowledge in action. There's a dynamic tension, and that's the generation. You generate new knowledge. As you are using it, you are creating new possessed knowledge. That's why we get better by doing. Cool? Okay. So what? I think that's cool, but so what? How does that speak to our teaching? What I do is first, lots of little pieces to teach and tell. Group explicit. This is how we do it. This is the ANI model. This is task analysis. This is whatever. Then immediately they have to write about it. They have to discuss this on the discussion boards. You can't do that in a class nearly so well as you can do that online. You get richer, more thoughtful discussions if after watching something they actually have to then post. Then we speak to the individual tacit by giving them a small project, a lot of little projects at the beginning. Put it into work. And I really emphasize, I don't care about the product, I care about the process. I want them to think about it. It starts making sense. They come up with the questions and they say, I didn't get this, I couldn't blah, blah. And I said, that's it. That's where you're supposed to be. Because if somebody just talks at you, it doesn't work. It doesn't help. Then we go into deep discussions. And this is when I became enamored with online education. It was not me doing it, but I looked at the discussion boards, because you have to require that you have to post, okay? But what happened is this magical thing about third week of the semester, after they've gotten some of this explicit knowledge, is that the discussion boards take off and they start having rich, interactive conversations where they start bringing in things from that they've read about this, they bring in their experience from over here, they start having arguments on the discussion board. These posts get to be like like that long, and they get replies that are about, I've seen replies that go down 7 deep. It's insane. The richness that you get in an online forum when you've set this stuff up is phenomenal. And it completely took me by surprise. Didn't expect it, glad it happened. And it's when I realized that, that can't happen in a class. It's almost impossible, because in a class, people are worried about, am I pleasing the teacher? Am I, there's almost too many other interactions, and there isn't the time. Okay, so we get that, and that's just wonderful, beautiful, and then we work on projects either individually or group, and to make meaning of what they've learned, and it's fabulous. And I'm really close to out of time. So what's it look like now? Blah. Let me give you a picture of it. Okay, so when they come to my classes are focused on weekly sessions. So a weekly session has, and this is whether it's blended, online, mid-flex, high-flex, it's like this. Okay, and I want them to do the work before we have meetings. With the just online classes, there's usually 2 or 3 required sessions and 3 optional sessions. When it's blended, there are 6 required sessions, and they can attend online or not. And frankly, what I do is I make a big point of it at the beginning, and then after that, I kind of just let it run, because I'm not that worried about it. I have a student in here that I haven't graded yet, so I can't tell him that. But okay, so I say, this is one that people ask me too. What are we doing in this week? Tell me at the beginning, please. And then you can see this is the first week. First week, people usually say, oh, hi, how are you? This is what we're going to cover. Okay, so in our first week, we do this. These are all videos. They last anywhere from 10 to 20 minutes long. And in the first week, there's a bunch of them. And there's 3 articles. And there's a discussion. And there's a little project. okay? There's a lot of stuff. And so that's the, I thought I might be able to talk about that. So we've got the video, we've got the readings, we've got the applications, bunches of assignments. But how do we do that with the time? You know, we're not paid that much to be grading all of this again and again and again. So what I do is I say, what we're talking about is the process. I want the discussion to happen, so that I have a discussion board. I say post a draft. I will go in and I'll make some comments occasionally, but I want them to discuss it with each other so that they get the learning. And then I basically, if they turn it in and it indicates that they thought about it, that's fine with me, because what I care about is not the product but the process, that they have considered it. And then our classes are mostly discussing issues that have come up, questions that have come up. Biggest downside is that you have to be willing to be at a loss in front of your class. You have to change things in the process. It is just insane the amount of time that you can spend, and that's basically the work that I'm doing now is saying, okay, so how can I do this? Because I've been doing it with very small classes, 10 to 15. I have a class of 20 this coming summer, and I'm having to kind of redo how do I deal with this, because I can't comment on every post, you know. So what I do generally is I go in at the very beginning and I comment on that. Then I want to cover this, and then I'll stop and I'll post this on my site. But the idea of cognitive immersion, that's my latest stuff from this semester. And what I realized is that it goes in waves. I blast a lot at the very beginning, and people are like, oh, geez, what are you doing to us? And then it backs off a little bit. And then we have some group work, and you think about it, and you put these things into work. And then we come back and blast some more. So I want to show you what that kind of looks like. This is my, this is the summer, so 13 weeks. And if it's red, that's a heavy week. So we got a couple of heavy, we got a light. We got a couple of heavy, we got a light. We got a heavy, and then we've got group work. This group is 2 or 3 weeks of really kind of, I mean, it's putting everything into effect, but it's not the killing level of, let me just keep shoveling stuff so your brain fills up. I'll have stuff, but it's at this point that I will start saying to the class, okay, you're posting, you've been doing really, really well, it's phenomenal, and if you have to make a choice between how much you post and working on your project, work on your project. So this is when I start dialing back the work they have to do for the class and start dialing up what they do to put it into action. And then there's a couple big weeks as they're doing the final projects. So that's how that works. So these are what I'm doing now. How do you dial back the time and still new classes? Every class is so different. But now that I'm re-recording 35 videos for this summer in the next 2 weeks, and then every semester hopefully I will be able just to record a couple that get thrown up that are tweaking for the specific class. Okay? Those are my 2 addresses. I'll post this up there. Questions? We're over time. I'm sorry. I can never stop. But I'm always happy to talk about this. Usually you will get me through email a lot more than you will get me here. Fly, be free.